Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And today I'm going to talk about a band that at least is a little better known, but probably is getting forgotten as the years go on. And that's Gun with Adrian and Paul Gurvitz. And both Adrian and Paul Gurvitz had a lot of history in British rock. They were in a band called the Knack in 1967. Had a number of hits. They actually had an organ player, Tim McCroft, and at one point John Anderson was their singer before moving to Yes. But the Knack had a string of singles out there. There's a great CD collection of all their singles. And then Adrian Gervitz was also with a band called Rupert's People, and they have a wonderful single. One side is Reflections of Charlie Brown, and the other side is Hold On, which is just a killer song, killer single. So there's a pedigree moving up towards Gun, and the Knack basically lost the keyboard player and the singer, and became a power trio. And they added Louis Farrell on drums. And so Adrian Gervitz, Paul Gervitz, Louis Farrell, and they Paul Gervitz was mostly a guitar player before, but he took the bass slot in this band to make this power trio, and they were pretty impressive. They got signed to CBS, which was a major label even back then, and issued their first single in 1968, "Race with the Devil," and that became a huge worldwide hit. It got quoted by Jimi Hendrix when he played at Isle of Wight, which is not surprising. Adrian Gervitz and Hendrix were friends and jammed a few times, and so they were well aware of each other. And then they put out their first album in 1968, and it's notable for having the first Roger Dean cover. But the other thing is that it's got a striking cover, but the Screams and Dreams, for example, is really seriously heavy. And the fact that this came out in 1968, I think Gun should get a lot of credit for formulating the earliest forms of heavy metal, because when they're heavy and they're powerful, they're pretty serious. And for that to come out in 1968 is pretty amazing. But one thing that Gunn shared with Three Man Army, the next Gervitz Brothers project, and just their work in general, a weird kind of schizophrenia, because there's these huge, uh, oftentimes bombastic ballads with very syrupy lyrics, a lot of times with orchestra and a lot of additional instruments and backup choruses. And it's a weird mix. I think there was a lot of bands that kind of had that split personality moving out of the 60s and going into the 70s. And a lot of them were real pop and psychedelic bands. And to make that transition to 70s hard rock that we know it, sometimes uh, there's these records that kind of have one foot in the old school and one foot in the new school. Early Deep Purple is a good example of that as well. They really just didn't quite know what they wanted to do, and there's these pop orchestrations mixed with hard rock, and so it was pretty common. But it's really pronounced with the Gun and also with Three Man Army. So Gun put out their second album in 1969, and it was notable for having one of the first Hipgnosis covers. Who, of course, Hipgnosis is known for a lot of major album covers in the 70s, including a lot of stuff by Pink Floyd. But the label's having a hard time with them because they had that worldwide hit in 1968, and then they released a bunch of singles after that, and they really went nowhere. They released Hobo off of Gunsight 1969, and then they released three non-LP singles, which thankfully now are available as bonus tracks on the CD reissues. But Drive You Mad, Runnin' Wild, and Long Haired Wild Man in 1970. So they last until 1970, and these are all really strong hard rockers. I think the band probably would have been better suited if they just stuck to hard rock, because they're another band that was really big in their time, and they're legendary certainly among collectors. But there's a lot of people that are still entirely unaware of them, which is kind of unfair since they were there at the very, very beginning of heavy rock. And there's a great 1968 show in Paris, a live show, and we're so lucky to have it. I'll post it below, but it shows they were true contenders in their live show. It's very impressive. They're definitely up there with the great power trios like Cream, who they emulated. But an amazing live show. So it really shows what they were made of. And like I say, I'm really happy that we have it. So, so the gun, and basically the gun turned into Three Man Army, but I decided to do one video on each of them. So that's the one I'll be doing next. But for those of you out there who are collectors, you're probably well aware of the gun, and their records get respectable prices. So they definitely have some cred. But once again, they should have been huge. One reason, well, of course, they didn't get bigger is they just, you know, even in the late 60s, a lot of the labels, including those in the UK, they wanted to have hits. And so if you run out of hits, then you're not going to be useful to them anymore. And because there weren't any um, personality clashes or musical differences in the band that split them apart. That's clear because Three Man Army really picks up where Gun left off. So without further ado, um, thanks for watching this video, and be sure to watch the next one on Three Man Army. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.